Hello guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome to my channel. Hey, come here. Let's read the Hugos. And watch the Hugos. I mean, some of these are like TV show episodes and movies. Anyway, hello. It is already Hugo nomination season. The Hugo Award nominees, not winners, I keep wanting to say winners, were announced on Wednesday, April 3rd, and I was so jazzed. I am really excited about the Hugos, especially since in past few years they've been more and more diverse, which is really awesome. Yoon-ha Lee has been nominated several times and he's trans. We've got lots of diversity in terms of race, sexuality, gender. Wonderful. I'm going to be talking about 5 categories today. The categories I feel like I've read or watched the most nominees from. So that is going to be Best Novel, Best Short Story, Best Novella, Best Related Work, and Best Dramatic Presentation Short Form. The last one's almost all TV show episodes. And I'm also going to be talking about which ones I think should be the winners, although unfortunately I didn't buy my ticket to the Hugos in time, so I was not able to vote, although I am planning on voting next year. A little bit about the Hugo Awards. They are given out every year at Worldcon, which this year is in Dublin, Ireland. You can buy a cheaper ticket that lets you vote, and then a more expensive ticket that actually lets you go. Anyone who has a ticket to Worldcon can nominate and vote for what they think is best in every category. They've been given out since, I believe, the 50s, and lately they've also been doing a retrospective look at the Hugos, so nominating, this year it's 1944 and 1945, and they are nominating works that came out that year, so Le Petit Prince is actually nominated for novella, I believe. But back to 2019, any work that came out in 2018 is eligible, and then Worldcon happens in August, which gives the voters enough time to read and vote for everything in every category. Alright, let's get started with Best Novel. There are 6 novels up for Best Novel this year, and they are The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal, Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers, Revenant Gun by Yoon-ha Lee, Space Opera by Becky Chambers, Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, and Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhars. I've read about half of these. I've read Spinning Silver, Record of a Spaceborne Few, and I just finished Trail of Lightning a few days ago. I haven't read the others, and I might not. I'll discuss my feelings. The Calculating Stars seems like it would be right up my alley. It's about a meteor hits the East Coast in 1952. Suddenly, like, the world is coming to an end and humanity needs to figure out a way to get to the stars and off of their dying planet. This involves a lot of female astronauts working for NASA to try and get this rocket off the ground and eventually to Mars. I don't like sexism, which I think is kind of obvious. I don't like reading about it. Basically, The Calculating Stars sounds like it has a lot of institutional sexism and racism that the main character needs to work through. That just doesn't sound like a good time to me. I will read a book that has racism against the main character if it is from a marginalized perspective, because I think that is worth reading about and worth learning about. You know, I love Hidden Figures. It's been talked about like, you know, oh, this book is really similar to Hidden Figures, but it didn't actually happen, and for that reason I'm just not very pumped about it. Next up is what I would vote for as the winner, which is Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers. Becky Chambers is one of my favorite authors writing right now. I think that her books, the Wayfarers series, which are also up for Best Series this year, are some of the most revolutionary sci-fi being written right now because they are so full of hope. And here in this dumpster fire of a world 2019, I think the most revolutionary thing we can do is hope and look at a future that is so bright and beautiful as the Wayfarers books. The wind through my window is just really loud. So Record of a Spaceborne Few is in her Wayfarers series, where humans are just part of like this galactic federation of aliens and varied species, and there aren't as many humans as there are other species, so they're kind of a minority, and they're late players to the game, so they're not all that involved in like galactic politics. And this follows the descendants of the original settlers who flew from Earth, and their fleet of spaceships is just orbiting a star. And this book is all about cycles. Like cycles around the planet, cycles in characters' lives, and like things coming full circle. It follows a lot of different characters. It's very diverse. It's wonderful. It's all about ethnography and family and job choices, and it's just a really wonderful book by a really wonderful author, and I think it should be the winner. Next is Revenant Gun by Yoon-ha Lee. I believe this is the 3rd book in his, I don't remember the series. The first book is Nine Fox Gambit. It is prided on being a very difficult series to get into because it's so far futuristic. The reader's just thrown right in. I started reading it and I would be able to power through that normally, but it's also military sci-fi, and I've learned that I don't like military sci-fi unless it's written by Lois McMaster Bujold. I just don't like military stuff. So I might read that series at some point, but it's not looking like it in the near future. Next up for Best Novel is Space Opera by Catherine M. Valente. She wrote The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making, The Refrigerator Monologues, and a bunch of other novels. I don't personally care for her just as a line-by-line writer. She's just like way more whimsical than I can handle. Space opera is described as like Eurovision in space, where if humanity's entry loses, then all of Earth will be wiped out. It's been described as like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy read-alike, and that just doesn't sound like something I'd be into. So since I'm not actually voting, I don't feel the need to read space opera. The fifth book up for nomination is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. This book, I was really excited about it because it's kind of in the same vein as Uprooted, which is another fairy tale retelling. It took me forever to get through for some reason, and I did not like the main character's love interest, just like I didn't like the love interest in Uprooted. He's a jerk, and I just didn't like him, and I felt like the book was not focusing on the characters I wanted it to focus on, and I was just kind of disappointed by it. It's fine, there's Jewish characters and a lot of great women and like women supporting women, but the love interest just like really bogged it down for me. Lastly is Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. Rebecca Roanhorse, if you remember, won Best Short Story in the Hugos last year. She also won Best New Author. This book is post-apocalyptic sci-fi. It's kind of like a climate change sci-fi, and it follows a Dene main character who is living in a walled-off Dene reservation. Dene is the ancestral name for the Navajo people. It has a lot of cool Dene mythology elements. Coyote is a character. I kind of forgot about this, but I used to read like a surprising number of books with Coyote as a character. I think mostly when I was in my Charles DeLint phase. I think he's always a really cool character. I was kind of disappointed by this book. It's urban fantasy, very like gritty, people die, like children die, and I wasn't super invested in the main character's romance. I wasn't all that invested in the main character herself. I thought that the Dene mythology element was the best element of it and the thing that made it the most unique, but the actual beats of the story didn't feel all that original to me. Next up is Best Novella. I actually managed to read almost all of these. The nominees are Artificial Condition by Martha Wells, which is another in the Murderbot series, Beneath the Sugar Sky by Shauna McGuire, which is another book in her Wayward Children series, which I've read those two. Binti, The Night Masquerade by Nnedi Okorafor, the third and final book in the Binti trilogy, which I also read. The Black God's Drums by P. Djeli Clark, which is actually a standalone, thank goodness, which I also read. Gods, Monsters, and the Lucky Peach by Kelly Robson, which I haven't read, but I'm going to. And The Tea Master and the Detective by Aliette de Bodard. If you've watched my previous videos, you'll know I actually did a whole review on this, and I thought it was pretty meh. I think for this one, I don't know, none of these novellas felt like that great to me. Like, they were fun when I read them. They're almost all Tor.com, of course. There's a lot of great ideas here, a lot of diverse authors. I would vote for Binti the Night Masquerade, not because I enjoyed it all that much, because I didn't, but I think it has the most unique ideas and like the best storyline. If we were going for which ones I enjoyed the most, I would probably vote for Artificial Condition, but I don't even remember what happened that much in that one because it was just like a 100-page Murderbot novel, which I was like, yeah, this is fine, chuck it, move on. Wow, with that resounding rounds of compliments, we are on to Best Short Story. This is the category that I'd read the least in, but since they're short stories, I managed to read them all in the space of time between Wednesday and today. The nominees for Best Short Story are The Court Magician by Sarah Pinsker, The Rose McGregor Drinking and Admiration Society by T. Kingfisher, The Secret Lives of the Nine Negro Teeth of George Washington by P. Djeli Clark, STET by Sarah Gailey, The Tale of the Three Beautiful Raptor Sisters and the Prince Who Was Made of Meat by Brooke Bolander, A Witch's Guide to Escape, A Practical Compendium of Portal Fantasies by Alex E. Hero. So the one that I enjoyed the most was the Rose McGregor Drinking and Appreciation Society, basically because it felt like it had been written by Terry Pratchett, and it was just all of these sulky and fey men complaining about this woman who they tried to seduce but instead had seduced them, and they're all like mutually pining after her, which was just hilarious and a wonderful celebration of women's sexuality. but the one that I would actually vote for would be The Secret Lives of the Nine Negro Teeth of George Washington by P. Djeli Clark. I think that although P. Djeli Clark didn't have the strongest novella this year, which if you'll remember was The Black God's Drums, he's doing some really interesting stuff right now. I don't think he's written a novel yet, but I'm excited to see where he goes with that. Anyway, I think that this was the strongest short story in the category this year. It involves magic and the lives of slaves and kind of the collective reevaluation of George Washington that we've done ever since Hamilton came out, where we're like, oh yeah, this guy owns slaves, that's pretty fucked up. And compared to all the others, it has a lot more depth to it, and I think it'd be really great to see a black man win in this category. Best related work. This is always kind of a nebulous category. It's just like any ill-defined work that orbits the sci-fi and fantasy genre. So the nominees are Archive of Our Own, the literal fanfiction archive. Not the stories in it, but the actual like coding and running of the archive. Talk more about this in a sec. Astounding, John W. Campbell, Isaac Asimov, Robert A. Heinlein, L. Ron Hubbard, and The Golden Age of Science Fiction by Alec Naval Ali. The Hobbit Duology, a documentary in 3 parts written by Lindsay Ellis and Angela Meehan. That's a documentary on YouTube. An Informal History of the Hugos by Joe Walton, which is a collected book form of the columns that Joe Walton wrote on tour.com. The Mexicanics Experience at Worldcon 76 by Julia Rios, Livia Brenda, Pablo De Fendini, and John Picacchio. And Ursula Le Guin, Conversations on Writing by Ursula Le Guin with David Naiman. So I haven't experienced all of these works. I've of course experienced Archive of Our Own. I watched the wonderful Hobbit duology. Lindsay Ellis is a wonderful YouTuber and film essayist who actually suggested that people nominate her, and I'm really glad to see she got enough nominations. I read An Informal History of the Hugos this summer, and then I took a cursory look at the Mexicanics Initiative. It's actually a website. I want to look more into it, but I did not have the brain space yesterday to read it fully. I want to read the Ursula Le Guin book because it's an Ursula Le Guin book. I'm trying to read all of those, and I'm just not super interested in reading the book about white men writing sci-fi. Sorry. I would vote for Archive of Our Own. Naomi Novik was one of the founders of Archive of Our Own, which is a crowdfunded, privately run, free-to-use website. No ads, amazing UI, amazing tagging system, tireless volunteers. It's a super impressive piece of work. I don't even understand a lot of the coding. I've read some tweets and blog posts from other people ever since this nomination came out, just kind of really appreciating the work that the people running AO3 have done. And for that reason, and for the reason that it has sustained so much of my young adult and adult life of being this fanfiction hosting website of a really high caliber, is why I think it should win, because it's done so much service for the sci-fi fantasy fandom community. But I wouldn't be upset if Lindsay Ellis won, I'm also just saying. And last, Best Dramatic Presentation Short Form. The nominees are The Expanse, Abaddon's Gate, written by Daniel Abraham, Ty Frank, and Naren Shekhar. I'm just going to read these off the screen because there's going to be some long writing credits here. Doctor Who, Demons of the Punjab by Vinay Patel. Dirty Computer, written by Janelle Monáe, directed by Andrew Donahoe and Chuck Lightning. The Good Place, Janet, written by Josh Seagal and Dylan Morgan. The Good Place, Jeremy Bearimy, written by Megan Amram. And Doctor Who, Rosa, written by Marjorie Blackman and Chris Chibnall. I've watched almost all of these except for The Expanse, because I don't watch that show, but it just so happens that the 2 TV shows I watched in 2018, 2 each of their episodes are up for nomination, so I've been really loving the 13th Doctor's run of Doctor Who, and I think that the episodes that were nominated were the strongest episodes this year. And then The Good Place has been putting out some really amazing content, and it's just running really strong and has a really great kind of ethical and moral backbone. And then I'm really excited to see Dirty Computer nominated. That is a short film that kind of follows the songs of Janelle Monáe's Dirty Computer album. And it deals with a lot of the same themes that Janelle Monáe's works have dealt with over the years, which is women loving women, women's body politics, the metaphor of black and android as other. Really cool work, really cool visuals. The episode that I would vote for would be Doctor Who Rosa. This was a kind of a difficult choice for me, but I think that Rosa was the strongest episode of Doctor Who this year, and it dared to go a place where no other episode of Doctor Who has gone, which is sidestepping the metaphor of alien racism and just going straight for straight-up racism. I don't think any other Doctor or any other season or group of companions could have told this story. It worked because there were companions of color this year, and the episode itself was written by a Black woman. It follows the team trying to make sure that Rosa is actually kicked off the bus so that the Birmingham bus boycott can happen. It has very few sci-fi elements except for this time traveler who's trying to stop the bus boycott from happening. And it's one of the scariest episodes of Doctor Who I've ever seen just because of the specter of racism hanging over the characters, the fact that they're a group of mixed race people traveling together and kind of what that gets into. It's able to pull the focus away from them enough to focus on Rosa herself, which is I think one of the strongest aspects of it. The woman who plays Rosa is amazing, and the episode definitely had me crying. Demons of the Punjab was also really strong and focused on an era of history that I knew next to nothing about, and it was really emotional, which was why I had a difficult time deciding. Alright, my voice is growing hoarse. It's time to sign off. I will link down below to a full list of the nominees so you can see for yourself, and that list will also have links to the short stories where they are accessible so that you can read them at your leisure. Alright, that is all for now. Thank you all so much for watching. Check out my previous video about reading the Hugo winners from 2018, which I'll also link down below, and hopefully I will see you in a few weeks. Bye!